If you've been around the channel for a little while, you know I review a ton of different EDC gear around here, but every once in a while something will come across my inbox or I'll see it on Reddit that's just truly one of a kind or unusual or unique. That's what we're covering today. I've got a roundup of some of the most unique, one-of-a-kind EDC gear items, and without any further ado, let's just dive straight into it with the first one. First up is a Carabiner Multitool from NW Vaughn. This is the NW Vaughn U4 Pro. It's a full titanium body carabiner that actually has built-in multi-tools. You know, not a ton. This isn't a 20-in-1 sort of thing, but you actually have a two-sided bit driver on here as well as a little scalpel knife. I came across this and I'd just never really seen anything like it. You know, I'm personally not a big carabiner guy or user, but this is just a really cool and unique double use type of item. I believe the bit driver has a few size options, but I do really like this smaller size that's utilized here because this would be really great. You know, if you have an issue with your glasses when you're out and on the go, you know, not everyone is going to carry a screwdriver for the glasses if they come unhinged or loose and you're out for the entire day. So this would be a really great backup type of item for that. Also just really small screws if you're working on electronics or anything like that. Like I'd mentioned, it's full titanium, so it's pretty lightweight. It comes in at 24 grams, and the scalpel blade on here is actually replaceable as well, which is a really nice touch for longevity. Comes in at $45. All in all, I just thought this was a really cool little piece of kit. Like I said, not a big carabiner guy myself, but if you are, this would be a really good way to go, I think. Next up is a brand new item from Woobin and something I have never seen anything like in my entire history of checking out EDC gear. Granted, I am relatively new to flashlights as a category. I've just recently started carrying them more often, but this thing is super unique. It is the Woobin X3 flashlight. They call it the Owl. There's a ton to cover with this flashlight, but the obvious standout at first glance is the fact that it has this little case here. This is a battery bank charging case with a 3000 milliamp hour battery, so you can pop it in and charge the flashlight through the case when you get home for the day or something like that. A really unique idea. They claim it lasts 100+ days. They didn't really give an hour rating. I also didn't see what the actual battery capacity is in the flashlight itself, but it's a 3000 milliamp hour battery in the case here. There are two different variants for the flashlight itself. I went with the one that has a red light and a normal white light. It gets up to 700 lumens for the white light. It gets up to 70 lumens for the red light. Red lights are really great if you're trying to, go around in the dark and not disturb people that are sleeping. I use a lot when I'm backpacking on my headlamp. I do believe that the all-white version gets up to 1200 lumens, I believe, but 700 lumens on the single bulb option here. So really bright flashlight for something this small in size. It comes in at 70 grams. The build quality feels really solid. You actually have a metal switch button here and a little tiny display that'll show the battery life and the lumen output, which feels and looks really nice. The body is a plastic. It's actually a glow-in-the-dark plastic, which is a pretty cool touch. You have a nice little pocket clip on here as well. But potentially the craziest feature of this thing outside of the charging case itself is that the flashlight actually rotates a full 180 degrees. So you take this base head here and it actually rotates down so you can have it in this orientation, or you can rotate it back to be more of a standard orientation there. This is a really kind of crazy cool feature to have. They call it the Owl. It kind of looks like a little owl here. But one of the benefits of having it rotated like this, if you put it in the case, you can turn it on and then you have a little diffusion panel here. So it almost works as a little lantern if you want to bring the case with you. They just finished the Kickstarter for this, I believe. If memory serves me right, the shipping will be on around October, but they are doing pre-orders on their website. I think it's a bit of a niche item in terms of flashlights, but if any of this sounds appealing to you, I just thought it was so crazy when I saw this. Had to share it. Really quick though, before we continue the next item, I want to thank Vankyo for sponsoring this week's video and for sending me out the new Leisure 470 mini Wi-Fi projector to test out and share with all of you. I've used a projector to watch TV in my bedroom for the past couple of years and really love it. When Vankyo reached out about the Leisure 470, it seemed really compelling, especially for the price and small size. First and foremost, it's bundled with a Roku Express, which I love. I'm a longtime user of Roku and definitely prefer Roku's operating system over any projector OS I've used in the past. The Roku covers any and all streaming apps I've ever needed, and it's definitely fast and snappy enough to navigate around menus in between streams. You also get really easy AirPlay support with the Roku, which is great. I use that all the time at home. I do a lot of solo backpacking, and I'll usually get home and show my wife all the photos and videos I took while I was out. The ideal projection size, according to Vankyo, is 90 inches, which is about 10 feet away from the surface, but it can actually project up to 250 inches if you want to set this up for a budget home theater setup or an outdoor movie night. In addition to the obvious focus ring, you do have a keystone adjustment as well of plus or minus 15 degrees, adds a ton of variety in placement where you can put it and still get an ideal projection. You also have a 1/4 inch thread mount underneath if you want to put it on a stand to take to go, or if you want to avoid a ceiling mount setup. You have 2 HDMI ports available and Bluetooth 5.1 if you want to use other options beside the included Roku. I actually set up my Xbox 360 when I was testing this, had a ton of fun with that. I think this would make a really cool kind of retro gaming projector setup. There's also a built-in stereo speaker, which I would say is adequate for indoor use, but you also have a 3.5mm aux jack on here. If you want to include a more substantial sound system, that's definitely what I would recommend. Overall, there's a ton of value here for $139 in this really tiny package. I think you get a lot for your money and for this size. Huge thanks again to Vankyo for sponsoring this week's episode. Be sure to check the links in the description below if you want to learn more or pick one up yourself. Let's jump into the next item. Next item on the list, we've got something from Gerber. This is the Gerber Keynote. This is actually a folding pocket knife, if you can believe it. It's a little 1-inch blade in this stubby little housing. I think this is just such a cool and unique design. This would be something really good for a keychain. And with this short blade, there are a ton of good applications for this, obviously, one of which, and the main of which, I think would probably be a box cutter. You actually do have a sharpened blade on 2 of these sides here, which was a nice little touch to have an extra point to cut boxes open or anything like that. It uses aluminum scales. It's a 5CR steel for the blade, which isn't the best, but this thing is only $27. So I think for that pricing, if this is something that would appeal to you, I think it is just a really cool, unique little item here. I've been brainstorming the idea of kind of building out a little like keychain EDC. So seeing some of these smaller knives that aren't just, the little multi-tools like a Victorinox SD or a Gerber dime or something. Seeing these little tools, I just thought this really stood out as a unique and cool little option, and most likely, kind of a viable alternative to a box cutter that you could probably keep on your keychain. So just really inexpensive, unique. I thought this was a cool little find that I picked up recently. Next up, we've got a bit of a divisive item, and my thoughts are honestly a bit divisive as well. I've had these for a while. They are the Sony Link Buds. These are, open ear earbuds. These came out in late 2021 or early 2022, something like that. I covered them right around the launch date, but I haven't given any long-term thoughts or review. I thought this would be a perfect setup for this because these are weird headphones. I think these really shine for very niche use cases, but otherwise I probably wouldn't recommend them. That being said, I use them often and really love them. The main use for me has been hiking. When I'm hiking, I don't like any sort of sealed earbud like the AirPods Pro. It's just a little more dangerous, even with transparency mode. And aside from that, for me personally, comfort becomes an issue for really extended wears with any headphone I've tried. So for that purpose, these are really great. They're very comfortable to wear. You don't have any sort of plugging of the ears. So if you have ear problems or earwax problems, anything like that, these are a really ideal scenario for you. I think these are kind of the perfect headphone for people that don't fit into any other headphones. Comfort and fit wise for these are top notch. They actually only weigh 4 grams. They are disturbingly light. Even the case itself is really small and light, but the earbuds themselves are very light. It's made out of a recycled plastic, both the earbuds and the case. Has a 17-hour battery life, which is adequate, I would say. Not quite as much as some of the other ones, but you get a much smaller form factor and a lot lighter weight. You also have a bone conduction control, so you actually tap the side of your face to play or pause. It's mostly good, but I do get some phantom skips and things just from moving my head around, or if I'm adjusting my glasses or something, sometimes it'll go off on its own. And the big question here is the sound quality, and that is definitely where these fall out with some harsh reviews from me personally, they don't sound very good. I mainly will use these just to listen to podcasts or, if I'm out on trail, I'm not too worried about my audiophile level headphones or anything like that, but the sound quality is mediocre. I will definitely say that. But I think, these are made for people where that's not a big deal, or made for people where you've just run out of options for ideal headphones. So very divisive and kind of really perfect for some niche situations, but I wouldn't really recommend them to most people probably. But they are very interesting. This has just such a strong first generation feel to it. I'm excited to see if they do end up making a second generation of these, if they're able to improve upon them a bit, because it was such a cool idea. I jumped on these right when they launched. I was a little disappointed, if I'm being honest, but I still really love them for that specific niche use case. So it's tough to recommend for most of you, but if you want something that's really great for hiking, or really great for pass-through, or really great for fitting your ears when nothing else does, otherwise, I'd probably pass on them, but still really cool and unique nonetheless to bring up in this video. Next up, we've got a charging multi-tool cable. This is the InCharge X. I know this thing's relatively popular, so you've probably heard of it, but I've yet to see anything else that is really designed to compete with this. So I thought it'd be a great match for this list. And the longer I use it, I still have been enjoying having it around. Previous times when I've mentioned this, I have gotten some so-so mixed feedback and reviews on people's long-term use cases with this from folks like you in the comments sharing. I always love when you do that, by the way. Keep it up. It's a huge help to me, and it helps kind of shape how I talk about things. So share your thoughts always on any of this stuff. I love it and appreciate it. It's a 6-in-1 charger, so it covers micro USB, USB-C, Lightning, USB-A, so it kind of covers just about any combination that you might have to be able to charge something. And it fits in this, obviously tiny little cable package here, and it has a magnet so you can kind of put it on your keychain and forget about it. It's a good emergency type of item. I usually throw it in my travel kit when I'm going somewhere just as a backup. I'll throw it in my backpacking kit just to be able to charge something because the cable is so small. It's really convenient for situations like that where the weight is an important factor in what you're packing. But yeah, really cool overall. Some potential flaws with the hinge designs that they have implemented, but so far for me, it's been working well. Just proceed with caution because I have gotten some mixed reviews from folks like you. Next up on the list, we've got the Modl Infinity tools. Now, I learned about these last year, and I did really think they were cool, but I've just had a tough time placing kind of where they fit into my day-to-day life. That being said, they are really unique, and I think the design and the build quality and everything is great. So I think a lot of people would have a ton of uses for these. Essentially, this is a little silicone cable that's meant to kind of replace a bungee cord or a carabiner, just meant to attach stuff to different things on your backpack or your sling bag or your bike. So yeah, I mean, there's not really too much else to say for this. You can strap whatever you want to whatever you want. They have 8-inch and 16-inch options available. They did actually just launch a 2.0 version of this. I saw when I was pulling up notes for the video. So they have a few extra attachment things that they've designed and are starting to sell, which is really cool. They have a hook attachment, so you could, wrap this around a tree and have a hook to hang something up. Tons of really cool stuff over there, so be sure to check it out. Let me know if you've used these before and what you use them for, because like I said, I thought they were really cool. I just had a tough time finding a place for them in my day-to-day life, but I figured there were some of you that do strap stuff around a lot and would probably find some really useful situations for these. Next up, we don't have a new item, but we have a real favorite of mine that still does not really have a lot of competition in what it does. The G-Shock Mudmaster. I have the GGB 100-1B model, especially now that we're getting into the summer months and we're getting into peak hiking and backpacking season. I do switch out and change different watches all the time. Day to day, I'll have favorites here and there, but I always wear this one when I'm out doing any sort of outdoor activities because it kind of brings a lot of good smartphone technology to a regular watch that will last 2 years instead of having to charge it every night. So it's a lot more compelling for me. You know, smartwatches just haven't quite gotten there yet for what I want them to be to justify wearing one over more traditional watches. But if you do any kind of outdoor adventures and you don't want to worry about having to charge your watch every single day, there are very few options out here that offer what the Mudmaster does. It has a temperature sensor, which is great if you're doing overnight backpacking. Check the temps, see how your gear performed. You also have a sensor to check the barometric pressure, which is really useful if you're hiking at elevation. You can actually see when storms are about to roll in, so you can get to safety if you're, you know, above the tree line, something like that. Being able to track that barometric pressure is really, really useful when you're out hiking. You also have an altimeter, which is really great if you need to check the elevation or kind of gauge where you are versus where you started. And you do have a compass as well. And outside of just the obvious compass features, you can actually set waypoints to show, you know, if you have a base camp or and are out day hiking, you can set a waypoint to your base camp and you can go out, and if you get lost, your watch will actually lead you back to your base camp. You know, I know none of these are like really, you know, crazy features if you're comparing it to a smartphone, but this doesn't need cell service. This doesn't need any sort of data service, and it lasts 2 years before you need to swap the battery. So that is what really makes it compelling in comparison. So I know smartwatches have tons of features. You know, I don't need to hear about it. I did look around just to see when I was prepping for this video if any other watchmakers have all of these built into a watch. I found one from Sunto, but you don't get quite the same water resistance as this, which is 200 meters, and you probably don't get the same like dust or mud resistance as the G-Shock Mudmaster. So there are very few options that really do what this does. I really love it, and I'm so happy to have it for this entire year. After getting it last fall, it's made my hiking season just way more fun and useful to have all of those features right on my wrist. Next up, I've got a combination of words I never thought I would say. This is the Marksmith bolt action titanium marker. I know we all know about titanium pens and bolt action pens. I've never seen before anyone make a titanium bolt action marker before. Definitely a niche item. You know, all of these are. If you're talking about one of a kind, you know, super unique items that no one else makes, they're probably not going to be for broad audiences. So apologies for like niche item after niche item, but it's just kind of what you signed up for clicking on this video. But if you're someone that works in a kitchen or, you know, does construction, anywhere where you do use a marker really regularly, I think this would be a great addition to have. Really great build quality all around. The price is pretty reasonable. It's $100. It's a pretty big range in titanium pens out there for what the prices are. But for $100, you know, you have the option to be able to refill and reuse this marker instead of, you know, throwing out marker after they get used. You do also have the option for a built-in pen insert as well. So if you want to swap out a pen instead of the marker, it gives you a little bit more versatility that way as well. So yeah, 100% titanium. It's a fine point marker. It writes and works really well. It's pretty straightforward for what it is and maybe a little unnecessary, but really fun. And I like the reusable aspect of it. And I've never seen anything else like this before. But that's going to wrap up the list here. A bunch of kind of one-of-a-kind, crazier items. I'd love to hear if you have any super unique EDC items that you've picked up recently or heard about recently. I've done 1 or 2 of these in the past, and I'll probably continue to do so as I discover these kind of weirder items. So huge thanks to all of you for watching this week's video. Again, let me know down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.